Hey, yeah, you. Pause for 1 second. Feel that shift in the air? That microscopic delay in reality? That's not tension, that's recognition. That's the exact moment they realized you're not what they planned for. You see, they didn't expect this version of you. They built a narrative where you stayed predictable, grateful, manageable. A character who followed the script, hit the ceiling they installed, and mistook the cage for safety. They planned for compliance. They planned for fear. They planned for a version of you that needed permission to exist. And then you didn't break the rules. You broke the assumptions. That's what shook them. Because when you stopped reacting the way they rehearsed, when you didn't collapse where the data said you would, something snapped in their mental model. Not anger, not hatred, confusion. The most dangerous emotion to trigger in people who think they're in control. They studied you like a problem. They reduced you to patterns. Trauma equals weakness. Pressure equals surrender. Silence equals defeat. That's how they mapped you. That's how they justified what they did. That's how they slept at night. But pain didn't hollow you out. It taught you how to move without noise. And that's where the panic started. Because saints don't survive what you survived. And psychopaths don't feel what you feel. You walk the line between mercy and menace so cleanly, it makes them nervous. You can be gentle without being weak, ruthless without being cruel, calm without being passive. You learned restraint not because you're harmless, but because you're dangerous enough to choose. They couldn't classify that. They kept waiting for you to explode, to self-destruct, to beg, to snap publicly so they could point and say, "See, we were right." They waited for the meltdown, the apology tour, the collapse. Instead, you evolved, quietly, uncomfortably, irreversibly. And here's the part they'll never admit out loud. The moment they realized you're not what they planned for was the moment they understood they can't control the outcome anymore. Because unpredictability isn't chaos, it's leverage. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped seeking validation from systems that profit off your doubt. You stopped playing the role of the wounded one, the grateful one, the almost there one. You became something worse for them, self-directed. That's when the smiles got tight. That's when the questions turned indirect. That's when the silence around you got heavy. They felt it. That cold, crawling realization that the version of you they were prepared to manage no longer exists. That the pressure they applied didn't crush you. It trained you. That every attempt to limit you sharpened your perception instead. You learned when to disappear and when to stand still and let the room adjust to you. You learned that power doesn't announce itself. It rearranges the environment. You learned that being underestimated isn't an insult. It's a tactical advantage. They thought you were becoming numb. What you were really becoming was precise. And precision terrifies people who rely on blunt force and loud authority. You're not loud like they expected. You're not reckless. You're not consumed by revenge. You don't move emotionally the way their playbooks predicted. You carry light and dark at the same time. And you don't apologize for the contradiction. Angel enough to see the pain in others. Demon enough to never let it be used against you again. That duality, that's what makes you unmanageable. Because you're not driven by ego anymore. You're driven by clarity. You don't need to dominate the room. You let the room reveal itself. You don't chase outcomes. You shape conditions. You don't fight every battle. You let time do the humiliating work for you. And they feel that. They feel it when your absence changes the tone, when your presence recalibrates the energy, when you don't react where they expected fear, and you don't comply where they expected fatigue. They feel it when their old tactics stop working and they can't figure out why. That's the moment. That's the moment. The moment they realized you're not what they planned for. Was the moment they understood you're no longer playing the same game. You didn't become harder. You became unpredictable with purpose. And once someone like you steps into that awareness, once you've evolved through pain instead of being defined by it, there's no putting you back into the box they built. They can adjust the rules. They can change the narrative. They can pretend they don't see it. But deep down, they know you're not what they planned for. You're what happens when the plan fails. And here's what makes it worse for them. You didn't announce the change. You didn't post about it. You didn't warn anyone that the internal architecture had shifted. You just started moving differently, thinking differently, seeing through things faster than before. And that silence, that restraint, that's what made them uneasy. Because when someone stops performing their pain, stops narrating their struggle, stops asking to be understood, it means something dangerous has happened inside them. It means the lesson has already integrated. It means the evolution is complete enough to function without validation. They expected scars to slow you down. Instead, scars became maps. You stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And started asking, what does this give me access to? That single pivot rewired everything. Suddenly betrayal wasn't personal, it was informational. Loss wasn't punishment, it was calibration. Isolation wasn't abandonment, it was incubation. They didn't plan for you to learn that. They planned for bitterness, for collapse, for you to rot in the aftermath and stay small enough to be discussed safely. They planned for you to need their approval again, their platform, their permission to feel whole. But you didn't come back asking. You came back unrecognizable. That's when the conversations about you changed. Same words, different tone, same smiles, different eyes. You could hear it in the pauses, see it in the way people recalculated mid-sentence. The moment they realized the old leverage no longer worked, and the new leverage didn't exist. Because you can't threaten someone who already faced their worst internal monsters and walked out with discipline instead of damage. They tried to provoke you. Nothing. They tried to ignore you. Things shifted anyway. They tried to define you. No category fit. You became a paradox they couldn't solve. Calm but alert. Empathetic but immovable. Detached but deeply aware. You didn't need to dominate to feel powerful anymore. You didn't need to win every exchange to know you were ahead. That terrifies systems built on reaction. Because reaction is control. And you stopped giving it. You learned that unpredictability isn't about chaos. It's about timing. About choosing when to be visible and when to vanish. When to speak and when to let silence corrode their confidence. When to be kind and when to be unreachable. They used to read you easily. That was their comfort, their sense of superiority. They thought they had you figured out, thought they could predict your next move based on your past behavior. But you didn't grow linearly. You mutated. Pain forced you to confront both sides of yourself, the part that wants peace and the part that knows how to survive without it. The part that forgives, and the part that never forgets. Lessons. The angel who still believes in meaning. The demon who understands consequences. And instead of letting one destroy the other, you let them coexist. That's the version of you they never planned for. Because they only know how to deal with extremes. Victims they can pity. Villains they can attack. Heroes they can exploit. But someone who operates between light and dark, who understands morality without being trapped by it, who can love without losing leverage, that person disrupts the entire structure. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to explain your strategy. You don't need to justify your boundaries. And the moment they realized that was the moment they lost their advantage. Now they watch you differently. Not openly, never openly, but carefully. Measuring their words, testing the temperature before engaging. Unsure whether you're dangerous or just untouchable. Unsure whether you're done evolving or just warming up. And here's the truth they're afraid to face. You didn't become this way to scare them. You became this way to survive. The fear is just a side effect. You learned that power doesn't scream. It doesn't rush. It doesn't need witnesses. Real power sits quietly and lets others reveal themselves. Real power knows when to wait and when to move decisively enough that there's no confusion afterward. You are no longer driven by proving anything to anyone who doubted you. You're driven by alignment, by knowing exactly who you are and refusing to be bent back into a shape that benefits others at your expense. That's why they feel it slipping. That's why the control feels weaker. That's why the room goes quiet when you don't play along. Because the moment they realized you're not what they planned for was the moment they understood something worse. You're no longer reacting to their world. They're reacting to you. And once that balance flips, once someone evolves through pain instead of being broken by it, there's no strategy left to contain them. Only distance, only observation, only quiet acknowledgement that whatever you've become wasn't in the design and never will be. And the strangest part? They didn't even notice the exact moment it happened. There was no dramatic turning point, no public rupture, no obvious declaration. That's what unsettles them the most. The change didn't arrive with noise. It arrived with stillness, with a subtle recalibration of how you carry yourself, how you listen, how you no longer lean forward when others speak, as if waiting for permission. You started leaning back. And when someone leans back, it signals one thing. They're no longer chasing the outcome. They're evaluating it. You became selective with your energy, surgical with your attention. You stopped feeding things that thrived on your reaction. You stopped correcting people who misunderstood you on purpose. You stopped trying to be seen correctly by those invested in seeing you small. That's when the dynamic broke. Because the world is trained to exploit predictable pain. It knows how to farm insecurity, how to monetize doubt, how to keep people running in circles just close enough to freedom to stay exhausted. They plan for you to stay inside that loop, to keep negotiating with ghosts, to keep asking the wrong questions. But you asked a different one. What happens if I don't need them to get it? That question detonated everything. Suddenly your silence wasn't absence, it was pressure. Your calm wasn't weakness, it was composure forged under stress. Your patience wasn't passivity, it was timing refined by betrayal. You weren't disengaged, you were unavailable for manipulation, and people can feel that instinctively. They feel it when their usual tactics bounce off you without friction, when guilt doesn't land, when fear doesn't stick, when praise doesn't hook you and criticism doesn't destabilize you. They feel it when you don't flinch at authority the way you used to, when you don't scramble to explain yourself, when you don't rush to fill the silence. Silence used to scare you. Now silence does the work for you. They watch you and can't decide which version you are. The one who endured too much, or the one who learned too much. The one who still cares, or the one who finally understands how little most things deserve access to you. You're both, and that's the problem. Because a person who has nothing left to prove but everything left to protect is impossible to corner. They can't bait you into overreacting. They can't shame you into shrinking. They can't rush you into decisions that benefit them. You move at your own tempo now, and tempo is power. You understand something most people never reach, that pain isn't the enemy. Ignorance of pain is. You didn't numb yourself to survive. You sharpened yourself. You didn't erase the hurt. You extracted the information. You let suffering teach you pattern recognition, emotional discipline, strategic empathy. You learned when emotions are signals and when they're traps. That's why your compassion scares them, because it's not naive anymore. It's informed. You can see someone's wounds and still say no. You can understand someone's trauma and still refuse to let it dictate your boundaries. You can forgive without reopening doors. You can love without surrendering leverage. That level of clarity doesn't come from books. It comes from being tested past your breaking point and choosing not to rot there. They planned for damage. You delivered adaptation, and adaptation is what outlives every system designed to contain it. Now, when you enter a room, something shifts. Not because you dominate it, but because you're not seeking anything from it. You're not scanning for approval. You're not adjusting your truth to fit the temperature. You're observing, measuring, deciding. That quiet authority makes people nervous, because they don't know if you're there to contribute or to exit. They don't know if you're fully engaged or already 5 steps ahead emotionally. They don't know whether you still care about the outcome or whether you've already accepted whatever comes and optimized for it. You stopped being attached to how things should go. And that's when reality started bending around you. They see it in the way setbacks don't derail you anymore, in the way disappointment doesn't linger, in the way you absorb information, adjust, and keep moving without spectacle. You don't spiral, you integrate. That's the evolution they didn't plan for. Because someone who integrates pain doesn't need revenge to feel powerful. They don't need to burn bridges to feel free. They don't need to announce their growth to validate it. They let results speak. They let distance speak. They let time expose the truth. And time is cruel to those who underestimated you. Every day you don't collapse is evidence. Every boundary you hold is confirmation. Every calm response where chaos was expected rewrites the narrative they built about you. They're left scrambling internally, trying to reconcile the version of you they dismissed with the one standing in front of them now, grounded, alert, unshaken, and no longer seeking their recognition. That's when the realization fully lands. You're not what they planned for. You're what happens after the plan stops working. And once someone reaches that state, once they've evolved through pain instead of being consumed by it, the world doesn't get to decide who they are anymore. You do. And here's the layer they never see coming, the part that never shows up in their forecasts or personality profiles or whispered assessments behind closed doors. You didn't just change how you act. You changed how you perceive. And perception is the root of power. You stopped mistaking noise for truth. You stopped confusing confidence with competence. You stopped assuming that loud certainty meant authority. You started watching what people avoid, not what they announce. You started listening to what slips out when they think they're safe. You started reading between the words, between the smiles, between the gestures that don't match the sentence. That's when the world exposed itself. Because once your perception sharpens, manipulation becomes visible. Patterns become obvious. Intent leaks through behavior, no matter how well it's dressed. And when you can see intent, fear loses its grip. You're no longer guessing, you're tracking. They didn't plan for that. They planned for you to stay emotionally reactive, for you to keep interpreting events through old wounds, for you to keep mistaking familiarity for loyalty, for you to keep doubting your instincts because someone once convinced you they were wrong. But pain burned the fog out of you. You stopped outsourcing your judgment, stopped needing consensus to trust what you see, stopped asking others to confirm realities you already understood. You learned that clarity doesn't come from agreement, it comes from alignment. And alignment makes you immovable. Now when people try to rush you, you slow down. When they try to pressure you, you create space. When they try to provoke you, you observe instead of engaging. You don't rise to bait anymore. You let it hang in the air until it embarrasses the person who threw it. That kind of restraint isn't weakness. It's dominance without spectacle. They feel that too. They feel it when you don't flinch at disappointment, when rejection doesn't shatter you, when loss doesn't send you scrambling back to familiar pain just to feel something. You don't need chaos to feel alive anymore. You don't need drama to feel relevant. You don't need constant stimulation to avoid yourself. You made peace with the quiet parts. And that's terrifying to people who depend on noise to hide their intentions. Because you're not desperate anymore. Not for approval, not for belonging, not for recognition. Desperation is the easiest thing to exploit. And you don't carry it anymore. You carry discernment. You carry patience. You carry a kind of calm that only comes from knowing you can survive without reassurance. They used to dangle outcomes in front of you. Now outcomes don't control you. They used to withhold validation to keep you guessing. Now validation doesn't move you. They used to rely on your hope to keep you compliant. Now hope isn't a leash. It's an internal resource. That shift alone rewrote the power dynamic. Because a person who no longer negotiates their self-worth is immune to most forms of control. You can't threaten what they've already faced. You can't shame what they've already integrated. You can't destabilize someone who understands their own shadow and doesn't run from it. You looked at the parts of yourself they hoped would destroy you, and instead of disowning them, you disciplined them. You didn't erase the darkness. You trained it, gave it purpose, gave it boundaries, turned raw survival instinct into strategic awareness. That's the demon they never accounted for. Not the wild one, the regulated one. A demon that knows when to wait. An angel that knows when not to save. You don't overextend anymore. You don't sacrifice yourself on altars that never intended to honor you. You don't confuse endurance with loyalty. You don't confuse access with intimacy. You don't confuse history with obligation. You learn that just because you can survive something doesn't mean you should stay in it. That realization alone disqualified you from their plans. Because their plans required you to keep tolerating what drains you, to keep excusing what diminishes you, to keep hoping people would become what they've repeatedly shown they're not. But you stopped hoping, and you started choosing. Choosing where your energy goes, choosing who gets access, choosing what you respond to, choosing what you walk away from without explanation, choosing peace without guilt, choosing growth without witnesses. And the moment you did that, the entire system around you lost its grip. They noticed it when you didn't chase closure, when you didn't demand apologies, when you didn't need the story to end neatly, to move forward. You didn't need them to admit anything. You didn't need them to understand you. You didn't need them to regret it. You already took the lesson. That's what terrifies them most. Not that you're angry, not that you're vengeful, but that you're complete without resolution.
Ah, there you are. Look who finally figured it out. Hello, you beautiful mind readers, you psychic nightmares, you walking lie detectors who make everyone nervous just by existing. Welcome to the conversation they never wanted you to have, the one about that thing you do, that thing that makes their skin crawl. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? That moment when you look someone dead in the eye and know without a single word spoken, exactly what they're hiding. That split second when their mask slips, and you catch it, while everyone else is still applauding their performance. They've been calling you crazy, paranoid, oversensitive for years, haven't they? Telling you that you're imagining things, that you're reading too much into situations, that you need to relax and stop being so intense. But here's the thing about being right too many times, it stops being coincidence and starts being a pattern. And baby, you've been painting masterpieces with those patterns while they've been trying to convince you that you're colorblind. Let me tell you what's really happening here. You've got something they don't. Have something they can't fake, buy or steal no matter how hard they try. You've got that sixth sense, that intuition that cuts through their bullshit like a hot knife through butter. And it's not just that you can see through their lies. It's that you can feel their intentions before they even form them. You know what they're going to do before they do it. And that's what's driving them absolutely insane. Remember that time you called it? Remember when you told them exactly what was going to happen and they laughed? Called you dramatic, said you were overthinking everything. Then it happened exactly like you said it would, down to the last detail, and suddenly they weren't laughing anymore. Suddenly they were looking at you different, like you were dangerous, like you knew something you shouldn't know. And that's when the real games began. That's when they started trying to gaslight you into doubting your own gift. But let's go deeper into this, because this isn't just about being right a few times. This is about the pattern that's been playing out your whole life. You've always been the one who knew when someone was lying, even when everyone else was buying their story. You were the kid who could tell when the teacher was having a bad day before they even spoke. The teenager who knew which friends would betray you before they did it. And now you're the adult who can walk into a room and instantly know who's real and who's wearing a mask. They hate this about you. They hate it with every fiber of their being, because your existence threatens their entire game. See, most people operate on the assumption that their inner world is private, that their thoughts and intentions are safely locked away where no one can see them. But you're like a walking MRI machine for the soul, picking up on energy shifts, micro expressions, and subconscious tells that they don't even know they're broadcasting. You're reading the code while they think they're writing it. And the craziest part is, you're not even trying most of the time. It just happens automatically, like breathing. Someone walks up to you with a smile and a friendly greeting, but something in your gut screams danger. A person tells you they're fine, but you can feel the storm brewing under their skin. Someone promises you the world, but you already know they'll disappear in 3 weeks. And you're right. You're always fucking right, and it's making them lose their minds. This is why they've been trying to break you down, to make you doubt yourself, to convince you that this gift is actually a curse. They need you to be wrong. They need you to be just as blind as everyone else. Because if you're not, then what does that say about them? What does it mean that someone can see straight through their carefully constructed personas, their elaborate lies, their hidden agendas? It means they're not as clever as they thought they were, and that's a reality they can't accept. Now let's talk about what's really happening in their heads right now, because this is where it gets delicious. Every single person who's been playing games around you is starting to crack under the pressure of your perception. They can't relax anymore, can't just coast on their usual manipulations, because they know you're watching. Not watching with your eyes, but with something deeper, something that sees past the surface into the truth they're desperately trying to hide. You've become their walking nightmare, the embodiment of their worst fear, that someone might actually see who they really are. They're checking themselves constantly now, second-guessing every word, every gesture, every expression, because they know you'll catch the lie before it even fully forms. They're exhausted from trying to maintain their facade around you, drained from the constant vigilance required to keep their mask from slipping. And the beautiful irony is that their nervousness only makes them more transparent to you. Some of them have started avoiding you altogether, haven't they? Making excuses not to be around you, creating distance because your presence feels like standing under a spotlight that reveals every flaw. Others have gone the opposite route, trying to get closer to figure out your secret, to understand how you do what you do. But they can't crack the code because there is no code. It's just you being exactly who you've always been, someone who sees what others miss, feels what others ignore, knows what others deny. The trust issues they're developing aren't really about you, they're about themselves. They're realizing that if you can see through them, then maybe they're not as good at hiding as they thought. Maybe their secrets aren't as secret, their lies aren't as convincing, their manipulations aren't as subtle. You've become the mirror that shows them their true face, and they despise what they see. So instead of changing themselves, they try to break the mirror. But you can't break something that was forged in the fire of 1,000 deceptions. Let's get into the mechanics of this gift, because what you have isn't some mystical woo-woo nonsense, it's evolution in action. Your nervous system is picking up on microdata that others miss, processing thousands of tiny pieces of information in milliseconds, and delivering the conclusion to your consciousness as a feeling, a knowing, a certainty. While they're still trying to process the words coming out of someone's mouth, you've already analyzed their tone, body language, energy, signature, and the gap between what they're saying and what they mean. You're operating on a different frequency. Literally, your brain waves are firing in patterns that allow you to perceive what others can't. It's like everyone else is watching life in standard definition, while you're seeing it in 4K with surround sound and smell-o-vision. You catch the flutter of an eyelid that betrays anxiety, the slight shift in posture that signals deception, the change in breathing that reveals hidden excitement or fear. And you process all of this without even thinking about it. This is why you know things before they happen, why you can predict behavior with scary accuracy, why you can feel the emotional weather changing before the storm hits. You're not psychic in the supernatural sense. You're psychic in the most natural sense possible. You're using capacities of the human mind that most people have forgotten how to access. Abilities that got buried under layers of social conditioning and polite lies. But trauma has a way of waking up dormant abilities, and honey, your radar got activated by necessity. They want to know how you do it, They're desperate to understand your secret. But here's what they'll never grasp. You can't fake this. You can't learn it from a book, or a course, or a guru. This is something that gets carved into your neural pathways by lived experience, by having to survive among people who smiled while they plotted your downfall. Every betrayal sharpened your senses. Every lie taught you to read the truth. Every manipulation made you more impossible to manipulate. Now here's where things get really interesting, because once people realize they can't hide from you, the entire power dynamic shifts. They start doing this dance around you, this careful choreography designed to keep you at arm's length while still trying to benefit from your presence. They want your insights when it suits them, want you to use your gift to help them see what they're missing. But they don't want you to turn that penetrating gaze on them. They want a tame psychic, not a wild one. But you can't turn it off, can you? Can't just decide to not see what you see, not know what you know. It's like asking someone to selectively go blind only when looking at certain people. Your perception doesn't come with an off switch. It doesn't care about social niceties or making others comfortable. You see what you see, and what you see is usually the truth they're working overtime to conceal. And that makes you dangerous, not because you would hurt them, but because you could expose them. Some of them have started testing you, throwing out fake stories to see if you'll catch the lie, presenting false emotions to see if you'll call them out. They're treating you like a carnival attraction, trying to figure out the trick behind your ability. But every test only confirms what they fear, that you really can see through them, that you really do know what they're thinking, feeling, planning. And with each confirmation, their paranoia grows, their trust issues deepen, their masks get heavier. The smart ones have figured out that the best strategy is simply to be real around you, to drop the act and show up as themselves. But here's the plot twist. Most of them don't even know who that is anymore. They've been performing for so long, wearing masks for so many years, that they've forgotten their own face. So when they try to be authentic around you, it comes off as just another performance, and you can feel the effort behind it, the strain of trying to remember who they used to be. This is usually when the isolation tactics begin, when they realize they can't fool you, can't control you, can't figure you out. They start creating distance, but not the obvious kind. No, they're smarter than that. They create emotional distance while maintaining physical proximity. Professional distance while pretending personal closeness. They include you just enough to avoid suspicion, but exclude you from anything that matters, anything real, anything that might require them to be vulnerable. You've noticed this, haven't you? The way conversations shift when you enter the room. The way certain topics suddenly become off limits. The way they share their secrets with everyone but you. They'll tell you it's because they don't want to burden you, or because they value your friendship too much to complicate it. But you know the truth. They're terrified of what you'll see if they let you get too close. Scared of what you'll know without them having to say it. Some of them have started creating elaborate stories about you to explain away your ability. They tell others, you're too sensitive, too intense, too much in your head. They need to pathologize your gift, because acknowledging it as real would mean acknowledging that they're not as in control as they pretend to be. So they paint you as the problem. The one who creates drama by seeing things that aren't there, even though their reaction proves that everything you see is absolutely there. But here's what they don't understand. Their attempts to isolate you only make you stronger. Every time they exclude you, you get better at reading the room from the outside. Every time they lie about you, you get better at recognizing the patterns of deception. Every time they try to gaslight you into doubting your perception, you get more confident in trusting it. They're not weakening you, they're training you, turning you into an even more precise instrument of truth detection. Now we've reached the point where things start to fall apart for them, where their carefully constructed realities begin to crack under the pressure of your knowing. Because here's the thing about living a lie: it requires constant maintenance, constant energy, constant vigilance. And being around someone who sees through it all makes that maintenance exhausting, eventually impossible. They're starting to slip up more, make mistakes, show their true colors, not because they want to, but because they can't keep up the act anymore. You're watching it happen in real time, aren't you? Seeing them unravel thread by thread. The confident ones are showing cracks of insecurity. The kind ones are revealing their hidden cruelty. The successful ones are exposing their desperate emptiness. And they know you're watching, know you're cataloging every inconsistency, every contradiction, every moment where their mask slips and their real face shows through. They're becoming paranoid about your very existence, about what you might be thinking, seeing, knowing. Some of them have started preemptively explaining themselves to you, offering justifications for things you haven't even questioned yet. They're telling on themselves, constantly providing information you didn't ask for because they're so worried about what you might have already figured out. They're confessing to crimes you didn't know they committed, apologizing for thoughts they think you've read, explaining motivations they assume you've decoded. And in doing so, they're revealing more than your intuition ever could have shown you. The ones who used to be master manipulators are finding their skills useless against you, their usual tactics falling flat. They can't love bomb you because you see the agenda behind it. Can't gaslight you because you trust your perception more than their words. Can't triangulate you because you understand the game. They're used to people who operate on the surface level, who take things at face value, who believe what they're told. But you operate from the depths. And that makes their shallow tactics not just ineffective, but laughable. What's really breaking them, though, is the mirror effect, because being around you forces them to see themselves clearly, maybe for the first time ever. Your presence acts like a truth serum, not because you're doing anything special, but because your awareness makes them aware of themselves. They start noticing their own lies as they tell them, feeling their own manipulations as they attempt them, recognizing their own patterns as they play them out. You've become their involuntary consciousness, their unwanted self-awareness. They're starting to catch themselves mid-lie now, stopping halfway through a manipulation because they can feel you seeing it. Some of them have actually started changing their behavior. Not because they want to be better people, but because they can't stand the feeling of being so transparent. They're editing themselves in real time, trying to become people you can't see through, but that's like trying to become invisible by closing your eyes. The more they try to hide, the more obvious they become. The trust issues they're developing are spreading beyond just their interactions with you. They're starting to wonder if other people can see what you see, if they've been transparent all along and just didn't know it. They're becoming paranoid about everyone questioning every interaction, doubting every relationship. You've planted a seed of doubt that's growing into a forest of insecurity. They can't trust themselves anymore because they know you see their self-deceptions. And that means those deceptions might be visible to others too. And here's the delicious irony. They're right to be paranoid, because once people start operating from truth instead of pretense, others do notice. Their friends are starting to pick up on the changes, the nervousness, the sudden self-consciousness. People are asking them what's wrong, why they seem different, what's bothering them. And they can't explain that it's you, that your very existence has made them question everything about how they move through the world. So they make up other reasons, but those lies feel hollow now, because they know at least one person can see through them. Let's talk about the weight of this gift, because it's not all victory laps and vindication, is it? Knowing what you know, seeing what you see, feeling what you feel, it's heavy. You never asked to be anyone's walking lie detector, never signed up to be the truth that makes people uncomfortable. Sometimes you wish you could turn it off, just be blissfully ignorant like everyone else. But that's not your path. And deep down you know you wouldn't trade this clarity for their comfortable blindness. You've probably tried to dim it down, haven't you? Tried to pretend you don't see what you see, don't know what you know. You've smiled and nodded when people fed you obvious lies, bitten your tongue when you wanted to call out the deception, played dumb when you knew exactly what was happening. But it never works, does it? Because your energy speaks louder than your silence. People can feel that, you know, even when you don't say it. And that's what really disturbs them. The thing about having this level of perception is that it comes with responsibility. Not to them, but to yourself. You have to decide every day how to use this gift, whether to speak up or stay silent, whether to reveal what you know or let them think they're fooling you. It's a constant calculus of cost and benefit, weighing the value of truth against the price of peace. And sometimes the price feels too high. Sometimes you wonder if ignorance really would be bliss. But then you remember all the times this gift saved you, all the situations you avoided because you knew better, all the people you didn't trust who later showed their true colors. You remember that this ability isn't a curse, it's armor. It's what's kept you safe in a world full of people who smile while sharpening knives. Your sixth sense isn't giving them trust issues, it's protecting you from becoming another casualty of their deception. Ah, look who's still standing. Hello to the ones who left without slamming doors, who walked away with their spine straight and their mouth shut, who turned their back on the circus and didn't even look back for applause. Hello to you, the one they thought was weak, because you didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't burn their world down on your way out. They thought your silence was surrender. They thought your grace was defeat. They thought you leaving quietly meant they won. Oh, how wrong they were. Because while you were walking away with your head high and your dignity intact, something else was walking in. Something they didn't see coming. Something that doesn't ask for permission, doesn't announce its arrival, doesn't send warning texts. Karma showed up, and it didn't bring flowers. Let me paint you the picture they're living in right now. You know that moment when you leave a situation, a person, a place that drained you, and you do it with class? No drama, no public call-outs, no revenge plots, just a clean exit. You packed your piece, you took your self-respect, and you walked. They probably laughed, didn't they? Probably felt relief, probably celebrated behind your back. Finally, they're gone. Now we can do whatever we want. They thought your absence meant freedom. They thought your silence meant forgiveness. They thought the chapter was closed. But here's what they didn't realize. You didn't leave to let them win. You left so karma could work without your interference. You stepped aside so the universe could step in. And now they're learning what happens when someone chooses dignity over destruction. Because the aftermath isn't pretty. See, when you leave with class, you're not running away. You're stepping out of the way of your own downfall. You're refusing to become the villain in their story. You're choosing not to give them the satisfaction of seeing you break, seeing you rage, seeing you become everything they accused you of being. But they mistook that for weakness. They thought you were too soft to fight back, too scared to speak up, too broken to retaliate. Wrong. You were just wise enough to let life do the fighting for you. Because here's the secret nobody talks about enough. When you walk away clean, when you don't stoop to their level, when you refuse to play dirty, you activate something ancient, something that doesn't need your input, something that operates on its own timeline, with its own methods, and that something is watching. It's been watching this whole time. They thought they got away with it, didn't they? The lies, the betrayal, the disrespect, the way they treated you like you were disposable. They thought because you didn't explode, because you didn't curse them out, because you didn't air their dirty laundry to the world, that meant they were safe. That meant the story ended with them on top. But the universe doesn't work like that. Karma doesn't care about who screamed the loudest. It cares about who was right. And you were right to leave. You were right to choose yourself. You were right to walk away before they turned you into someone unrecognizable. And now, while you're healing, while you're rebuilding, while you're becoming the version of yourself they'll never recognize, they're starting to feel it. That slow, creeping realization that something is very, very wrong in their world. Let's talk about what karma actually looks like when it arrives. It's not always loud. It's not always immediate. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's surgical. Sometimes it shows up in ways they can't even explain to other people without sounding paranoid. Maybe it's the way their new relationship suddenly feels hollow, even though it looked perfect on paper. Maybe it's the way their friends started distancing themselves without explanation. Maybe it's the way opportunities they were counting on just evaporated into thin air. Maybe it's the way their sleep got worse, their anxiety got louder, their reflections started looking unfamiliar. Maybe it's the way your name keeps coming up in their mind at 3 a.m, even though they swore they were over you. Karma doesn't always destroy someone's life in one catastrophic blow. Sometimes it dismantles them piece by piece. So slowly they don't even realize they're falling apart until they're already in pieces. And the beautiful thing, the absolutely poetic thing, is that you don't even have to watch. You don't need to keep tabs on their downfall. You don't need to scroll through their social media looking for signs of their suffering. You don't need confirmation that they're paying for what they did, because you already know. Deep in your bones, in that quiet place where truth lives, you already know that walking away with grace was the most powerful move you could have made. You already know that refusing to fight dirty was the ultimate checkmate. You already know that your silence speaks louder than any speech you could have given. And while they're out there trying to convince everyone that they're fine, that they're thriving, that losing you was the best thing that ever happened to them, you're actually living that reality. You're the one who's genuinely moving forward. You're the one whose energy shifted. You're the one who's no longer carrying their weight. But let me tell you what's really happening behind the scenes, in the parts of their life you'll never see. They're pretending everything is perfect, but internally, they're unraveling. Every time someone brings up your name, there's a twitch. Every time they see something that reminds them of you, there's a sting. Every time they have to face the consequences of the choices they made, there's a moment where they realize they lost something irreplaceable. Because here's what arrogant people never understand until it's too late. When someone leaves with class, it's not because they don't care. It's because they care too much about themselves to stay. It's because they value their peace more than they value proving a point. And that kind of self-respect, that kind of inner strength is rare once they realize what they lost. Once they see you from a distance thriving without them, that's when it hits. You weren't the problem. They were. And that realization, that gut punch moment where they understand they fumbled someone real, someone solid, someone who genuinely cared, that's karma's first swing, and it doesn't stop there. Karma has a way of making sure the lesson sticks. Suddenly, the person they thought was better than you starts showing their true colors. Suddenly, the life they thought would be easier without you becomes more complicated. Suddenly, the freedom they thought they'd gain feels more like emptiness. Suddenly, they're surrounded by people, but they've never felt more alone because nobody loves them the way you did. Nobody shows up for them the way you did. Nobody sees them the way you did. And now they're stuck with the haunting knowledge that they destroyed something beautiful because they were too blind, too selfish, too broken to appreciate it while they had it. That's not just karma, that's karmic poetry. You know what the wildest part is? You're not even thinking about them anymore, while they're dissecting every conversation you ever had, replaying every moment, wondering if they made a mistake. You've moved on. Not in the fake way people move on, where they're still secretly hoping for an apology or a reunion. No, you've genuinely released them. You've let go of the anger, the bitterness, the need for closure. You've accepted that some people are just lessons, not forevers. And that acceptance, that peace, that closure you gave yourself without needing their input, that's the ultimate power move. Because now they can't hurt you. They can't manipulate you. They can't gaslight you into thinking you were the problem. You know your truth. You know your worth. And you know that leaving was the right choice. That clarity is untouchable. Meanwhile, they're spiraling. They're questioning everything. They're reaching out to mutual friends, trying to get information about you. They're checking your social media even though they swore they wouldn't. They're wondering if you're seeing someone new, if you're happier, if you ever think about them. And every piece of information they gather confirms what they're terrified to admit. You're better off without them. You're glowing. You're lighter. You're free. And that realization is eating them alive, because it means they weren't the prize, you were. It means they didn't upgrade when they moved on. They downgraded. It means the narrative they created in their head where they were the one who got away is a lie. You were the one who got away. And now they're stuck with that truth, and it's suffocating them. That's karma working in real time. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The universe has a way of showing you exactly why you had to leave. Months later, maybe even years later, you'll hear stories about how they treated the next person the same way they treated you. Stories about how their patterns never changed. Stories about how they're still making the same mistakes, still running from the same demons, still sabotaging the same blessings. And instead of feeling vindicated, instead of feeling satisfied, you'll just feel grateful. Grateful that you got out when you did. Grateful that you didn't waste more time trying to fix someone who wasn't ready to be fixed. Grateful that you chose yourself even when it was hard. That gratitude, that peace, that's the real victory, not their downfall, your rise. Let's talk about the version of you that exists now, the one that was forged in the fire of walking away. You're not the same person who entered that situation. You're sharper now, more discerning, less tolerant of disrespect, less willing to shrink yourself to make others comfortable, less interested in proving your worth to people who should have seen it from the beginning. You've learned to recognize red flags faster. You've learned to trust your instincts more. You've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is leave before you lose yourself completely. That wisdom didn't come easy. It came from pain, from heartbreak, from choosing yourself when every part of you wanted to stay and fight for something that was already dead. But you did it. You walked away with class. And now you're living in the aftermath of that choice. And it's beautiful. They don't tell you this enough, but walking away with dignity is one of the hardest things a person can do. It's easy to scream, to explode, to burn bridges and salt the earth on your way out. It's easy to let your pain turn into rage and unleash it on everyone who hurt you. But to feel all of that, to carry all of that, and still choose grace, that takes strength most people will never have. That takes maturity most people will never develop. That takes self-control most people will never master. And you did it. Not because you're weak, not because you're scared, but because you're wise enough to know that some battles aren't worth fighting. Some people aren't worth your energy. Some situations aren't worth your peace. So you left. And in doing so, you reclaimed your power. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean you didn't love them. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt. You can love someone and still leave. You can care about someone and still choose yourself. You can want the best for someone and still refuse to be part of their chaos. Leaving with class doesn't erase the pain you felt. It doesn't minimize the betrayal you experienced. It doesn't invalidate the heartbreak you endured. It just means you refuse to let that pain turn you into someone you're not. It means you refuse to let their actions determine your character. It means you refuse to give them the satisfaction of seeing you become bitter, angry, or broken. You felt everything, processed everything, and still walked away with your head high. That's not weakness. That's warrior energy. And here's what they'll never understand about people like you. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because you started caring about yourself more than you cared about them. You left because you realized that love shouldn't cost you your peace. You left because you understood that some people will never see your value, no matter how much you prove it. You left because you finally accepted that you can't force someone to treat you right. You left because you chose your future over your past. And that decision, that conscious choice to prioritize your well-being over their comfort, that's what set everything in motion. That's what activated karma. That's what started the chain reaction that's now playing out in their life, whether they realize it or not. The universe rewards people who choose themselves. Not in obvious ways, not always immediately, but eventually, inevitably, it rewards you. Maybe it's in the form of new opportunities that align with who you're becoming. Maybe it's in the form of healthier relationships that show you what you should have had all along. Maybe it's in the form of inner peace that no one can disturb. Maybe it's in the form of clarity that allows you to see situations and people for what they really are. Maybe it's in the form of confidence that can't be shaken by external validation or rejection. Whatever form it takes, it comes. And when it does, you'll understand why you had to walk away. You'll understand why the pain was necessary. You'll understand why the ending had to happen the way it did. Because it wasn't just an ending. It was a redirection. While you're over here becoming the best version of yourself, while you're over here healing and growing and evolving, they're stuck. Stuck in the same patterns, stuck in the same mindset, stuck in the same cycle of self-destruction. And the worst part for them is that they know it. Deep down, in those quiet moments, when they can't distract themselves anymore, they know they lost something real. They know they fumbled someone who genuinely cared. They know they destroyed something beautiful because they were too damaged, too selfish, too scared to appreciate it. And that knowledge, that awareness, is its own special kind of torture. Because they can't undo it. They can't go back. They can't fix it. You've moved on. You've closed that chapter. You've built a life they're not part of. And all they can do is watch from a distance and wonder what could have been if they had just treated you right. But here's the thing about karma that makes it so perfectly poetic. It doesn't just punish them for what they did to you. It teaches them why they lost you. It shows them, through experience, through consequence, through the natural unfolding of their choices, exactly what they threw away. They'll date someone new and realize that person doesn't love them the way you did. They'll get into a new situation and realize it doesn't feel as right as what they had with you. They'll try to recreate what you gave them and realize it was irreplaceable. And with each failed attempt to find what they lost, with each moment they're reminded of what you brought to their life, the lesson deepens, the regret intensifies, the realization settles in. They had something rare, and they destroyed it. That's karma's masterpiece. And the most beautiful part of all of this, the part that makes your decision to walk away with class so powerful, is that you don't need their regret to validate your worth. You don't need their apology to find closure. You don't need their downfall to feel victorious, because you already won. The moment you chose yourself, the moment you walked away with dignity, the moment you refused to let their actions define you, you won. Everything that happens to them after that, every consequence they face, every lesson they learn, every piece of karma they experience, that's just the universe confirming what you already knew. You deserved better. You were right to leave, and you're better off without them. That confirmation is satisfying, sure, but it's not necessary. You already had your victory. Their karma is just the encore. So here you are now, standing in a completely different reality than the one you were in when you first decided to leave. You're lighter, stronger, clearer, more aligned with who you're meant to be. The weight you were carrying, the weight of trying to make something work that was never meant to work, is gone. The confusion you felt, the confusion of wondering if you were the problem, is gone. The doubt you carried, the doubt about whether you made the right choice, is gone. All that's left is peace. Peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing. Peace that comes from choosing yourself when it mattered most. Peace that comes from walking away with your integrity intact. And that peace, that unshakable inner peace, is worth more than any revenge plot, any public call-out, any dramatic exit could ever be. They'll never understand how you did it. They'll never understand how you walked away so calmly, so quietly, so gracefully, while feeling everything you felt. They'll never understand how you carried all that pain and still chose kindness. They'll never understand how you had every reason to destroy them and chose mercy instead. But you don't need them to understand. Their understanding isn't required for your peace. Their acknowledgement isn't required for your growth. Their regret isn't required for your happiness. You've moved beyond needing anything from them. You've transcended the relationship entirely. And that transcendence, that elevation, is the ultimate form of closure. Not the closure they could give you through apologies or explanations, but the closure you gave yourself by deciding you're done carrying their chaos. Now let's talk about what happens next, because this story doesn't end with their karma. It continues with your evolution. Every day you spend away from that toxic situation, every day you invest in yourself, every day you choose peace over drama, you're building something they'll never be able to touch. You're building a life that reflects your worth. You're building relationships that honor your boundaries. You're building a mindset that protects your energy. You're building a future that doesn't include people who don't appreciate you. And with each day, with each choice, with each step forward, you're proving that walking away with class wasn't just the right move. It was the only move. Because staying would have cost you everything. Leaving saved you. And here's what they'll never admit, but will always know. Watching you thrive without them is the hardest pill they'll ever swallow. Seeing you happy, seeing you glowing, seeing you unbothered, that's the revenge they fear most. Not because you're trying to hurt them, but because your happiness without them proves they were never as important as they thought they were. It proves they were replaceable. It proves their absence didn't destroy you. It freed you. And that truth, that undeniable truth, will haunt them longer than any words you could have said. Your life, your peace, your growth, that's the statement. That's the message. That's the proof that karma doesn't always need to destroy someone's world. Sometimes it just shows them exactly what they lost by letting you walk away. So to everyone who walked away with class, who left without burning bridges, who chose dignity over destruction, this is your reminder. You did the right thing. Karma is handling what you released. The universe is rewarding your restraint, and your peace is the ultimate victory. You don't need to see their downfall to feel satisfied. You don't need to hear their regret to feel validated. You don't need to witness their karma to know it's working. Because you're already living your best life. You're already exactly where you're supposed to be. And that is the revenge they'll never recover from. Not your anger, not your bitterness, not your rage, your peace, your growth, your unbothered energy. That's the baseball bat karma walked in with, and they never saw it coming.